Boom. Right, so welcome back, guys, to the next episode on What the Health is Going On podcast. I'm joined here with Ryan again, and today we've got a very exciting topic that we think is certainly becoming more popular, and unfortunately not in a good way. And that's to do with these weight loss medications that are now seem to be available over the counter, especially here in the UK. I think it's the same case in most parts of the world now. These medications that we're seeing from like Ozempic or Mounjaro, Wegovy, however you refer to them as, they've all got names now with new companies coming out. And it's not so much that we've got a problem with the medication, it's more a case that we've got a problem with the circumstances people are using them and what we're seeing. So these medications were brought in to support medical cases for people that have got either diabetes, cardiovascular disease, or are clinically obese. These medications are then utilized in a clinical setting to help remediate people's conditions and support weight loss goals to get them to a better state of health. I'm seeing personally now that these are becoming like the new trend for people to jump on the holiday glow up, or to lose a bit of weight to look good for a photo shoot, or to just impress someone for a special event where they want to fit into a dress again within a 4 to 6 week period because they've been unbelievably lazy in general, not been dialing the lifestyle from optimizing nutrition, their exercise routine, their lifestyle management, and just want to use that for a quick local transformation, which I think is incredibly sad and pathetic. That's my opinion personally today, but we'll hash that in this podcast, Ryan. So what's your opinion and stance with these current things that you're seeing as well from the weight loss we'll call them medication, but weight loss interventions people are using?
Seen along the lines of what you've alluded to there, in that initially this intervention was brought about for people with metabolic disorders, particularly type 2 diabetes, and the most common users tend to be people who really don't need it. They've not got a massive amount of weight to lose. They're already what is kind of defined as reasonably lean. It's more using it for a vanity metric, if anything else, or just like a quick fix solution, just to obviously the obvious appetite suppressor that it is. And, just for like a quick 6-week shred, 8-week shred, whatever you want to call it. Normally around this time of the year, if you've got imminent holiday books, something like that. I used to get it a lot myself and make inquiries for PT. People would say, like, I've got holiday books for X amount of time. And commonly my answer would be, if you're only going to train a few months of the year for a holiday, you're never going to be in that good a shape. It's a lifestyle, it's a commitment, something you do year round. It's an investment in yourself and in your health, not just for the aesthetic. But yeah, they're very much abused in terms of getting that quick fix solution without necessarily doing the work, is how I tend to perceive it.
Yeah, I have to agree. I'm seeing it so common with people now. People that are coming in from the end of one week and into the next, and all of a sudden, there's a transformation which is quite dramatic. Now, I see the appeal in that from people that do want a body recondition. Don't get me wrong, there's something with you results quickly. Who's not going to want to use it? But it's the point of what you alluded to. People are using it, they don't need it, right? I mean, I'll go back to a case where I was in the gym and I saw a kid in there, and I know this guy, and I hadn't seen him for 2 weeks. So I saw him 2 weeks later, he referred again, and he looked so good in his face. Like you say, that when they have that mass or tissue loss in the face, and you get the gaunt eyes, the sunken eyes, the defined chisel features of the face, and it was dramatic. I didn't think he'd eaten in a number of weeks. He looked like a prisoner of war. Now, this guy was probably hovering it around, I don't know, 14% body fat, was relatively healthy and lean. And then he came in very unhealthy after being on it. And I only found out because he was openly speaking about it near me with, I believe, another kid he was training with, that someone else came into the gym and then said to him, "What's happening, man? You've lost weight." He says, "Oh, I'm on Retta," which is retatrutide, which is a peptide now that they're coming out for a new GLP-1 peptide, which is like I think it's a 3-way GLP-1 agonist, and I don't remember the function that maybe some of these MPEGs don't. The change was huge, and he didn't look good for it. And it was kind of worrying that I was thinking, why is it guy that's in relatively okay shape decided to go on a weight loss medication that didn't need to lose weight. What's the thought process behind that? And then it kind of, for me, what rationale with something that we spoke on in the past was that it's kind of speed running body dysmorphia. Because if people can now get a change in their body or hit beauty standards that they're trying to live up to online in a very short period of time, and that's what people are alluding to using to do it, to me, that's very dangerous. I see that as being, and I've said this on other platforms, I think it's going to be the fitness industry's form of heroin, in the sense of people aren't addicted to the drug itself, but people are addicted to the outcomes and results from the drug. So then when they start it, the anxiety of coming off of it or needing the dependency to stay on it to maintain results is going to be a new issue altogether, which is untapped territory because these are new to our current existence. These have only just come out, and they're not aware of these long-term health implications or issues that are going to come from the mental health aspect.
Absolutely. And something we've alluded to before as well is the body positivity movement has all but disappeared as well since the introduction of such interventions. And obviously we spoke about, like the plus size, models, if for want of a better word, actors, performers like Lizzo, Rebel Wilson, and I think we mentioned a few others, glamorizing that Beast Beautiful persona and all this. That's all disappeared now. All the people who are jumping on board that bandwagon who were, seeing them to fan and happy and all the rest of it. It's like, really, you weren't, because you're jumping on this intervention that promises rapid results straight away. So it's like, the real answer was, you wanted the result if you didn't have to work for it. You wanted the results yesterday, as most people do, with little or no work required. And this has now facilitated your ability to do that.
Yeah. That's what I think how these so popular is because they target the celebrities first. The celebrities are in the public eye, like your influencers, your celebrities, your actors, your singers, they get results. The media then pushes it to the masses. And then this is where this huge explosion comes in of it just falling into culture, we could call it. It's moved down from it. And one thing that we're now seeing from that is it's very slow to catch up is the health implications of the risks that are associated with these said drugs. Now, I've heard of people that have actually been using weight loss medication and had a diagnosis from cancer. Is it because of the medication? We don't know. Correlation doesn't mean causation, but was it a factor? Maybe. We've seen celebrities say they've had issues with their vision. I think Robbie Williams, we've said, who's openly said that he's having issues from potential sight loss using the drug, and he has no plans of stopping, which is fucking insane. For me, I think that's ridiculous. You want to live a lifestyle and look a certain way, and you think it's going to cost you vision, that ain't worth it. We know the gastrointestinal challenges, we know there's potentials of hair thinning. And also, a good one is this, I think it's like a dopamine suppression effect of people being empty or losing the lust for life because it suppresses that kind of function, even like with eating food. Everyone looks forward to the meals in general, without the medication, obviously. I'm a foodie. I love to look forward to each and every meals, but I know people that have come up to me and asked me about information for it because their partners are using it. And when they're having meals with their partners or they're doing certain things with them or going out for meals, they just look vacant and unhappy. And that's another kind of new side effect or risk that's coming from people just using these on the fly and not being made aware as to the risks that are associated with it.
Absolutely, yeah. It's probably one of the lesser talked about ones as well, is that, because that encompasses such a large area of our life and social interactions with people as well. So that can obviously put a massive barrier to that as well. And, people, in almost in the same way as like, contest prep would for bodybuilding and stuff like that. It's a very kind of like selfish pursuit. And then it probably like, in my opinion at least anyway, and something I've never, been inclined to do, but it just like sucks all the goodness and enjoyment out of your life in that time frame in which you're doing it, and you can't go out and socialise the same without, walking around with Tupperware containers, full of meals, pre-preps and stuff. You can't join in on social events in necessarily the same way as with other people and whatnot. It does create that bit of a divide and a barrier for anyone. close to someone who's doing this, they're in a relationship, partner, etc., all the rest of it, I could see being causing a bit of an issue long term.
Yeah, and again, it's all being exactly what you put from there. It's driven through vanity because, as you mentioned, people obviously have this warped sensation that being a certain appearance to a standard that's online that they need to strive for or aim towards. Now, given that as the information, one thing that I do want to do on this chat is, and I mentioned this to Ryan, I want to share a company that's actually promoting these medications here in the UK and just show some of the really poor information that they're targeting, their language, their framing of how bad some of this marketing is. And also, it's who they're pitching it at, because one of the videos that I found, and I'll share now, you will see just from the get-go how poorly targeting this is, and you'll be able to call it out with me, Ryan, as soon as we finish watching this video. But we'll watch it and just see what you make from it from the advert.
This is Charlotte. She was desperate. Every time she looked, the price coming again, £200 a month, £300 a month. That's when it hit her.
But what if I couldn't to keep going with my treatment?
But then a friend told her about Bolt. Bolt is the UK's most affordable science-backed weight loss solution, fully online, with free shipping, no hidden fees, and a simple way to get started. Now Charlotte's finally seeing results. Her clothes fit better, the scale is moving, and most importantly, she knows she can actually stick with it. Choose smart. Take the free quiz today and see if Bolt is right for you.
Right, so that's the company that I'm not naming, but the woman that's seen that video, let's just load it back up, because again, I think we need to drive this point home.
That's ridiculous.
That is not somebody that needs weight loss medication. And that is worrying that we're going to use people like that, because if that's the standard, imagine how many women that are in similar to a position that may have, like I say, body dysmorphia, body confidence issues, and they believe they're overweight, which is more of a mental health topic. Well, we can easily just look at that and say that that's the case. What is this company doing? You should never pitch something like that to the general public in that language. And then the reason why I think it is highlighted from this company, I've told Ryan about this previously, their ads are being flagged for being disabled for not following advertising standards, which that to me 100% isn't. And I think they've still got 576 ads running currently on the net platform. Now, Ryan, you've said it straight there and then. Do you think a person like that actually needs weight loss medication?
I've had a long history of training female clients, as you have, and it's very common, to be fair, that girls are trained who have been reasonably lean do suffer from body dysmorphia to a large degree anyway, where they feel like they're in way worse shape than they actually are. So then the kind of messaging that they're receiving doing that, and then that just kind of confirms their insecurity, if you will, and that body dysmorphia even more so. So I'm thinking, oh, well, if that's being aimed at them, and they think they look like, in the same position as the person who's in that advert, who to anyone else, I mean, a lot of clients on in the past would give anything just to be in that position to start with, never mind worrying about, little extra margins you can achieve from there, which you can do naturally anyway. We both know that is very achievable without these interventions, and pretty rapidly as well. When we're speaking about female fat loss and people, they perceive this the wrong way, but like in terms of muscle building compared to fat loss, muscle building's takes so much longer. It's such a long, drawn out process. It's a lot of work. Whereas relatively speaking, we can lose fat very quickly. If someone who's already that lean, for them to do that naturally isn't a lot of work at all. But instead, you're being pushed down a route of medical intervention that you've got absolutely no idea as to the long-term side effects of. It can be potentially very dangerous. So something that isn't really a lot of work, as much as the person may perceive it to be, is a few very quick fixes you can implement to achieve that naturally.
Yeah, and what you've mentioned there, coming back to the advert, when it's mentioning words like cheap and rapid, those are big buzzwords in marketing, because for some reason it ties into that dopaminergic quick fix result that people crave for everything in life, unfortunately. And weight loss is probably going to be one of the hottest searched supplements for like fat loss supplements. Me and you both know fat loss supplements prior to this day and age were absolute garbage. They didn't work. They weren't such a thing. These now do change the game a bit. And I think from an ethical standpoint, in a negative way, I like them used for clinical cases. But when you're advertising to people like that and you're using things like she saw the scale moving, like I'll say to all the females, even males, the males that I've suffered body dysmorphia when I was a kid, I was younger, and I was obsessed with scale weight. Seeing that number change is so misleading because one thing that these medications will do, if you are resistant training, they're not just losing fat mass, you're actually going to lose muscle mass and bone density as well. That's been proven in trials, as you see. So people that don't resistance train, they don't eat adequate protein. If you see that scale drop and you think I'm losing weight, you're losing the worst kind of weight sometimes as well.
Yeah.
Your muscle tissue is the most protective tissue on the body, same as your bone density. There are two things you'd never want to lose. So this is where I reframe that advert, and I wouldn't even pitch it as weight loss medication. I wouldn't pitch it to somebody who looked like that. I'd actually pitch them to get into the gym and start adding muscle tissue to their body. Get a metabolically active tissue. And ladies, we've with us in the previous podcast, you will never get bulky from the gym. Look how many men train for decades, try damn hard to put on muscle size and struggle very difficult to put on quality muscle all the time. Your training has to be very advanced, you're eating very sensibly, structurally checking your blood work, implementing supplements when needed, or in general, most men may even resort to taking PEDs, which we've covered on a podcast. I'm not a fan of them. I think there's too many risks involved, unless it's needed for you chasing being a world-class bodybuilder. Maybe then it's the conversation you need to consider having. But for Gen Pop, absolutely not. Again, it's another vanity-based metric or drug we can say that is unregulated and unsafe. This is the same thing. This is no different. This is the absolute opposite end of spectrum to steroids, but it's achieving a body compositional goal or look, which is harmful to health, especially when people don't take into consideration those two things. It's just taking the medication and thinking that's fine. There's risks there that you're going to be impacted. You're going to impact your whole down the line.
100%.
So, and I think one thing that we'll also mention with that was the fact that I think when I was reading some of the research, I know that one of them has been a while, he's been around since 2014, but I think it was 2021 that these actually gained more approval to be used in the clinical setting. And when it became popularized in the media, there was a 700% increase in demand, right? And because of that, there was unregulated companies that were brought in to match the demand because the conventional supply couldn't keep up. So people don't even understand that they could be taking something which is unregulated. And yes, it may have some compound in it, but what else is making up from it if it's cheap and it's readily available, is there things in there which are potentially detrimental to health because, again, it's a regulated source that's producing it. People always know that there's a black market alternative to all weight loss medication and probably most medications on the planet that you can get them from unlicensed sources. So the fact that people can get hold of things now in the modern world we live in and have them shipped right straight to the door, there's more risk involved in it. And one thing that I'll also touch on finally is with, I think it's 12 pharmacy that we're doing these consultations. I know a girl who was in a friendship with them on a holiday. One of the girls in the group actually contacted Bowl, had a consultation after this quiz. She didn't need the medication. She openly admitted she didn't need the medication, but was still giving it anyway because she just told story on the call. So then was prescribed said medication. That's the worrying thing. So that pharmacy to me isn't doing its job from a respect perspective and more doing it based on revenue.
Absolutely. And another consideration as well that people don't take into account is, and this is like, again, from yours and my own perspectives when we're taking on board clients, two of the most common discrepancies you see in people's nutrition tends to be one, protein seems to be very much lacking, and so does macronutrient content as well. And as we've spoken about on previous episodes, so nutrients dictate the language of our cells, and they're relying on so many different a multitude of different factors, supporting different systems within the body. If you're not eating anywhere near enough, you're not hitting your quota anyway, and now you're taking on board an intervention that's a massive suppressant of appetite, how do you possibly think you're going to hit that quota in any way, shape, or form? It should be diminishing them values even more so. This is where things, can really get messy in terms of thyroid. We know women are way more susceptible to thyroid disorders than men. These interventions are targeted predominantly at women, as we mentioned, with the body dysmorphia, body confidence issues. You're opening yourself up for major dysfunction down the line, endocrine dysfunction, thyroid, massive nutrient deficiencies. It's a pretty dangerous path to go down in that respect.
You could think of. I mean, people are already probably going to be nutrient deficient as it is. And then they go on a weight loss medication, which is going to further exacerbate that issue. That the reason why they probably got health challenges or issues losing weight that's needed, even people that don't eat enough in general, are then going to be driving that suppression so much harder through a forced deficit, which may not even be needed for health for them to feel better. So they're chasing a vanity metric to feel better about themselves, but then it actually compounds and makes it worse the way they're feeling because it's not a healthy approach.
Even just looking at thyroid and things like that, as we know, just being in a severe deficit alone can have a detrimental impact on thyroid health. And then we're looking at like zinc, selenium, iron, vitamin A, all these components that make up thyroid health, your tyrosine, iodine, all the rest of it, all these components that are vital for thyroid health. And you can rest assured, for the most part, most people aren't eating quality food sources to acquire these nutrients anyway. And then, throwing that in the mix, you're eating even less. And the people who are eating less, they're not thinking, I'm on this medication now, I'm going to eat super clean, I'm going to eat all the healthy foods. They're generally just eating absolute crap and just eating less on you. You know what I mean?
I think on one of the other videos as well, on that website, Bolt, was a woman that was outlining what her daily food structure looked like. And it was like, on one of the adverts, she said, I didn't have to give up anything that I was eating beforehand. And, I can still have my treats. Her whole day was treats. Her whole day was based around like sausages in the morning, Greg's or like Pret Mange at dinner. And in the evening, it was fucking takeaway pizza. And it's like, and now my body's now telling myself when it's full. No, your body isn't telling yourself when it's full. That's the fucking medication. Because if your body was telling yourself when you were full previously, you wouldn't need to be on a medication for it to do that. You'd be eating sensibly. You'd be making wiser nutritional choices. It's like you say, people are taking it as I can still eat and drink alcohol and do whatever I like. I'm just having less of it. No, because you've not changed or modified the original issue, especially if it's improving body composition and you're in a position that you need to do it, not that you stick thin like on that video we saw, and you actually need to get in the gym and probably have more protein in your diet and change your view of what
Like saying about, now my body's telling me this, and now people have like a false optimism where they think like, this is what this is doing. It reminds me of doing consultations with clients or prospective clients, and they'll sit down in front of me and say, well, I eat pretty well. I'm thinking, well, if you did, you wouldn't be sat here. You know what I mean? Like, what is it? You wouldn't have the issues that you have if you went as well as you perceive yourself to do. You won't be sat in front of me saying you want body compositional changes and all the rest of it, which a big part of it is generally usually fat loss,
Yeah, and the accountability side of it is massive, isn't it? Because a lot of people overestimate the exercise they do and underestimate the food they're intaking.
Massively on both sides of the spectrum.
Yeah, we've touched on it previously about people saying, when you you mentioned air bike sprints in the past with the client saying, I've got to do all that work for 10 calories on the air bike. Yeah, because that's the reality. That's how much you can consume calories so much quicker than you could ever dream of burning them off. And that's the problem when the energy balance equation comes into it. You cannot basically out-exercise poor nutrition. In the same lens, you can't out-medicate. Well, Ironically, you cannot medicate poor nutrition here, but how sustainable is that? Because we don't know long-term data as to the health implications of this medication. I believe I think it's like 17 years that we've discussed, there's a lag time between something becoming published and then recognized in general literature and taught to people. That's a huge guinea pig window of people hammering these things currently and then seeing the long-term side effects down the line and going, damn, I wasn't aware of this. I wish I'd not done it. And that's what's going to catch up to people, I think, in the future, because it's no different to on a separate topic. A lot of the younger bodybuilders now, which we've done an episode on this, that are pushing harder cycles, trying to get meta results, become the next standout person, and sometimes even glorify it on social media to get attention. And it does actually influence a lot of guys, unfortunately, which is really poor. But the number of deaths there's been, the number of deaths from cardiac related illnesses from young guys in their 20s from taking performance enhancing drugs and dying from some sort of serious side effect or outcome. This, I believe, is going to be no different in the future. I think there's going to be a huge lag measure of them realizing how dangerous these things are, and then they will become far more tightly regulated.
I was actually having a conversation about this with someone the other day, and saying that the likes of ourselves, doing the blood work, doing the functional medicine, and all the rest of it is going to create a lot of customers for us, with people looking for solutions for the long-term effects of what they're doing now with these GLP-1s.
Yeah, because I'm running bloods on it that GLP-1s. I haven't seen a single person that I know that I've seen doing it or running blood work. That pharmacy doesn't run blood work with you. So from an ethical standpoint, how are you tracking someone's health? Is it just through questioning? Because you and I know, if people think that they're going to express a negative side effect to a consultant or their physician, and they dread that they're going to be taken off said medication, is that going to be a true reflection? Me personally, I think a lot of people will lie. I think they'll go, "Oh yeah, everything's great, I'm fine." Probably feeling like absolutely nuts.
Another thing we spoke about as well is that the amount of people who I've spoke to personally as well, and I know you've said the same thing, Tom, is that people actually become fearful of coming off the medication as well, because they've relied on it so much for the result, and that they feel like, I come off this now, what's going to happen? Am I going to revert back to how I was before? And they're really fearful of going backwards again. So they'll do anything in that instance to lie and say, if suppress any kind of side effects, certainly not moisten them anyway. And if it's going to jeopardize them getting that repeat subscription again.
Yeah, can't. Once you're on the fix, mate, you need it, don't you? But in a jokey way, but in a very serious tone. Yeah, I honestly think it's going to become an epidemic where people become so heavily addicted, not to the drug itself, but to the outcome, to staying in the eye on social media and try and please strangers on the internet that don't give a single damn about their health and just like to, throw them a like or a flirt because they look certain way or they look kind of good in a picture. I personally think a lot of people on the weight loss medication look unhealthy now, especially a lot of the people in person that I've seen doing it. That's just my opinion. And again, that's not based on factual evidence. I just think if you want to build sustainable habits for the long term, I wouldn't advocate for these medications because again, I'm going to come back to the point of what they were actually brought in for: clinical case need in, diabetics, cardiovascular disease, basically clinically obese patients that can support weight loss and changes very quickly, and then build the back end stuff from the nutritional support, their lifestyle and exercise program, which then builds foundations for them moving forward. I think we've hammered this topic to death because, again, we can keep going over it round and round, but there's so many red flags with it. Like I say, from celebrity culture, the body positivity movement disappearing overnight, the fact that people can now get these from really underhand marketing tactics, like I've demonstrated in the video on this call. I think it's such a dangerous space, and I don't think that there's been a lot of thought from the clinical background that are marketing these interventions to the general public and then thinking, what are the actual long-term risks for people and what is this going to do from a standard or societal standpoint, especially social media, when we're seeing people take them that don't need them. And then how do they actually govern or segue that conversation to get people off them in the long run? We don't know, but hopefully, if something bad in the future comes up from it, we were here in the early days trying to pre-warn people, I guess, and share better insight. So I guess we're doing our due diligence here, mate. But that was an awesome podcast. If you guys have watched and enjoyed it, please drop your thoughts and comments below. On the channel, follow and subscribe if you haven't, because we are going to be covering more hard-hitting topics like this. Again, we're very openly speaking. This is based on what we've seen personally, and again, our own opinions, so that it may not be based in fact. You may challenge us or disagree. Drop us a comment, let us know. Well, until the next one, guys, enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for your time, Ryan. Love that episode, and stay tuned for the next episode coming up, guys.